In this episode of the Ultimate Browns, we examine the Deshaun Watson trade. And I'm going to let you know why people saying that this could potentially be the worst trade in NFL history are in left field. I'm going to break it down and give you context and nuance to the situation as only G. Bush can do. Welcome to this episode of the Ultimate Browns. Welcome on into the fastest 30 minutes in all sports. It's the Ultimate Brown Show with your boy G. Bush right here. Hope everyone had a great Memorial Day, ate a little food. I hope you worked out too. Make sure you didn't eat too much food, right, man? But it's always good to be around family, and it's always good to support a holiday that actually has some substance to it. And this one is a major one. Those who've given the ultimate sacrifice for us to do what we do here on the Ultimate Browns and all over the great U.S., and those who have died or fought in wars. And we say for everyone, we want to thank you for your sacrifices and your contribution to the way of life that we have in the United States. And thank you so much for your service. Today's show, we got a good one, man. This show is I'm actually excited about doing. It's not like I'm not excited about doing all the other shows, but we're going to get into something about debunking this whole Deshaun Watson thing. People keep getting these talking points. You know how I hate talking points. To me, it gets lazy, and I think people just start repeating the same things people just hearing. But before we get to that, let's get to we're going to have a spotlight with Zadarius Smith. He's cut his hair. You know what I'm saying? It's always a transition, to cut your hair, man. Some people would definitely feel when you're doing your lock journey. So Zadarius Smith has cut his hair, but does that mean it made him a better ball player? We'll examine it in the player spotlight, Zadarius Smith and his thoughts, and see him a little bit in training camp, and also talk about what his production needs to be this year. And do we need a little more from Zadarius Smith than he gave us last year? What is his expectations coming up here in this next season of 2024? We also examine the Deshaun Watson pick. We examine it from the Houston Texans angle. What did they do with the picks? The picks are paid in full. The Deshaun Watson trade is paid in full. They've used all the picks from the Deshaun Watson trade. We examine what Houston actually got out of the trade. And did they really win the trade or not? We'll go examine and go in between the lines with that and break that down a little bit as well. But first, let's get to what we want to get to, examining the Deshaun Watson trade. This clip we're going to play is a kind of a response we did on last Friday's show. DeMarcus Spears of ESPN said that this is a make or break year for Deshaun Watson. And we kind of broke down and opined on that. Me, Jay Crawford, and Earl the Pearl, we talked to what we felt, whether these comments were in line and how we felt that the season should go. And is this a make or break year for Deshaun Watson? More importantly, when we get back from looking at this sound, I'm gonna debunk this once and for all, and get to the point where we could give you the information to make an informed decision about whether this trade is the worst in NFL history. And let me tell you something. I pulled up some trades in the time machine, and let me tell you something. There are way worse trades than this, but no one seems to remember these trades. So sometimes you got to bring back history. History is a good, a pointer, so we can make a good informed decision on whether or not this whole Deshaun Watson talking point is actually something that has any merit or any teeth. So let's go ahead and check this clip out. This is from last Friday on the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show on WKYC. If you missed it, make sure you watch us every Friday from 12:30 to 1 p.m. on WKYC.
Comments recently from an old friend of mine, Marcus Spears, recently on our quarterback, Deshaun Watson. These comments made on NFL Live. Listen.
I don't know if he's ever going to return to the player in Houston. That player in Houston was a guy we had on the same pedestal with Patrick Mahomes. I'm not sure if he ever gets back to that point with his production and the things he was doing. This is a show me year for Deshaun Watson. And look, unfortunately, his availability has been rocked by some injuries, significant injuries, by the way, that you can't perform with. But you said it, Tim, 5-year, $230 million, that's a financial anchor. We going to be the hell with that anchor if he don't perform well or if he's unavailable. Listen, this is the National Football League. history. And I get it. We've had a lot of nuance and a lot of discussion about Deshaun Watson getting back to the point where he's playing at a high level. He has to play at a high level this year. This is the year of demarcation for Deshaun Watson, if this was a good investment or not. And if not, unfortunately for the Cleveland Browns, it's going to look like the worst acquisition that we've seen in this league probably ever.
Marcus stole my notes. I mean, I've been saying that. I initially said when we made the deal, if it doesn't work, it'll be the worst trade that we've ever made, amongst the worst that we've seen in the NFL. And I've been saying all this offseason, it's time. And I think you guys agree with that. Now, what we might not agree with is if it doesn't happen next year, there are still 2 more years on the contract. But do they move on if it's a definitive, it didn't happen again?
Well, listen, that's the part I agree with him. I said in the opening, I said, he was right and he was wrong. He is right. If you go back and listen to Deshaun Watson, he's saying that, guess what? For me, I got the same expectation. It ain't no like y'all got higher expectations than me. I expect to go out there and play at a high level, and I think he will. The problem that I have is, first of all, it's not the worst trade in the history of all mankind. Let's be clear. The kid from that came out of South Dakota State. Trey Lance went to the San Francisco 49ers. They gave up 3 first-round picks, and they still went to the Super Bowl. No one says that's a terrible trade, right? Browns went to the playoffs, they even had the Super Bowl. But when you talk about it and you talk about the contract and whatever that goes into it, that's the going rate for a quarterback that is a franchise quarterback. So, and right there, we pick up at that point. Because when we always talk about Deshaun Watson, it always comes to this the worst trade. Like it's like you throwing it in on the top of a cherry on top of the sundae, right? You know what I'm saying? It's a talking point that people and I expect that for the national media, right? Because let's be truthful, bro. Let's be honest. The national media, when you're asking those guys to cover all of these different teams, right? They're covering every 32 NFL teams. You want them to have an opinion on NBA. You want them to have an opinion on Major League Baseball. You want them to have an opinion on college sports. So let's be clear. When they're doing these type shows, these guys aren't spending the majority of their time drilling down on the minutia of local stories with a team. That's why we have beat reporters. So sometimes you can come off as uninformed when you talk about certain things and being the worst trade in NFL history, because you're not putting in all of the time and energy and effort, which is impossible. Let's be clear. You can't cover a team, 32 teams with that type of microscope. So what they do is they usually take something from somebody, they hear it, and if you hear it enough times, it just becomes gospel. It becomes the truth. When in reality, all you're doing is regurgitating the talking points that somebody else is saying. And when you talk about the worst trades in history, let's go ahead and talk about what it is that they're talking about in the trades. And so we can talk about whether or not the Deshaun Watson trade equals up to any of these other trades. And I'm going to tell you, these trades that I'm about to show you is terrible. On face value are horrible. But even some would argue are worse than a Deshaun Watson trade. But those trades aren't talked about because people just don't take time to dig in and really drill down on what we're saying. So first and foremost, to establish this, let's talk about what the Cleveland Browns gave up to get Deshaun Watson. We'll examine this a little bit further later down the line, but let's examine. So this is from a couple of years ago, and they talked about it, said back in March of 22, the Cleveland Browns sent a 2022, 2023, and 2024 first-round pick, along with a 2023 third-round pick and a fourth-rounder in 2022 and 2024 to acquire Deshaun Watson's services. Also in the trade, the Browns received a 2024 sixth-round pick, which they used earlier this offseason in a trade to acquire Jerry Jeudy. So that is what they gave up, right? This is the compensation. So you got 3 first-round picks, and a third rounder in 2023 and a fourth rounder in 2024 and 2022. So that's what they gave up, right? In the next segment that we do, we will break down what exactly did the Houston Texans do with these picks and what was the results for those picks. And we'll talk about that coming up in the next break, right? But that's what they gave up. So let's go down through trades that are as equally as garbage and as equally as bad that no one talks about. Let's get to it. Let's look at it. Look, this is from 2022. Broncos trade for Russell Wilson. Broncos failed for years to find a viable quarterback and replacement following Peyton Manning's retirement, leading to them send a massive haul to Seattle for Wilson. Denver traded Drew Lock, Noah Fant, Shelby Harris, who now plays for the Browns, 2 first-round picks, 2 second-round picks, a 5th-round pick to Seattle for Wilson, and a 4th-rounder. Wilson was coming off a down year in Seattle, and things got much worse with his new team going 11-19 as a starter over 2 seasons before being released in March of 2024. Not only did he get released, they had to eat all of that money. So you gave up all of that, and you had to eat that contract that he had that was millions upon millions upon millions, and that was a dead cap hit. Now we talking about how bad the Deshaun Watson trade. Not only is the Deshaun Watson trade has not been anywhere near devastating for the Browns. Not only the Browns have done what they needed to do, they went to the playoffs. They went to the play. That's how good the roster is around Deshaun Watson. They went to the playoffs with backup quarterbacks. Tell me one free agent that they didn't get because they paid Deshaun Watson $234 million. I'm still waiting for that answer. And every time I talk about this, I ask that. So here's one trade that is worse than the Deshaun Watson trade. Let's continue to go on. This is another trade that was under the radar. 2021, Colts acquired Carson Wentz. Desperate for a quarterback help, the Colts traded a 3rd-round pick and a conditional 1st-round pick to Philadelphia for Wentz. Wentz went 9-8 as a starter, failing to make the playoffs, and fell out of favor with ownership and the coaching staff. He was traded to Washington the following season, where he also lasted 1 year. So you gave up a 1st-round pick and a 3rd-round pick for Carson Wentz, and he played 1 year for you, a 98 starter. That is a horrible trade. Again, by the way, the last 2 teams that made the bad picks that are being made, they're making them to get a quarterback. Remember what I said in the clip. In the clip, I told you when you have to have a quarterback, that's the going rate for a quarterback. When you don't have one, you reach, you stretch, you do whatever you can to get one, right? So we see already Russell Wilson was a reach for the Broncos. Now we see Carson Wentz is a reach for the Colts. But somehow, some way, even though the Browns have made the playoffs and these 2 haven't, somehow it's the worst trade in history. I'm going to say the best for last. Don't worry about it. We already know what's coming. Mitch Trubisky, 2018. The Bears dealt their 1st, 3rd, and 4th-round picks, as well as a 3rd-round pick selection in 2018 to San Francisco to move up 1 spot in 2017 draft for the rights of Mitch Trubisky. Not only did Trubisky struggle in 4 seasons with the team, but the Bears also bypassed Patrick Mahomes, Deshaun Watson in favor for the UNC alum, excuse me. As time goes on, the trade and draft choices look worse and worse for Chicago. Again, what position is this, boys and girls? Let's say all along, this is a quarterback. Remember what I just told you. If you don't have a quarterback, teams spend whatever they need to get one. And let's talk about Mitch Trubisky not being worth any of those picks and the opportunity cost that you left behind because you passed on Patrick Mahomes. But when we talk about the worst trade in history, the worst trade in history, by the way, all these quarterbacks fully got paid. So don't add the contract because here's what happens when you're a quarterback. When you are a quarterback, you get all of that money because you make so much money that it's a dead cap hit if you do cut the person. And matter of fact, Russell Wilson, they had to eat all that cap too. So again, we don't hear nothing about this pick. We don't hear nothing about this being the worst pick ever. Let's continue to go on. I can still go. At the time, it looked like a great pick. 2012, Washington Redskins trade up for RG3. Targeting the Heisman Trophy winner, Griffin III, Washington sent 3 first-round selections and a second-rounder to the Rams, who were set at quarterback with former first-round pick Sam Bradford. The blockbuster move was ill-fated for Washington. RG3 hurt his knee at the end of his rookie season, leading to a downward spiral for his career. Never turned out to be anything other than a journeyman, and it pretty much derailed and debunked his situation. Once again, 3 first-round picks. No one talks about this. The only thing that saved them was the fact that they took a 4th-round pick and they drafted Kirk Cousins. And Kirk Cousins turned out to be a guy that had a better career than RG3. But no one talks about this. No one talks about what that looked like. Again, can we say it all again, boys and girls? This was a quarterback. So teams make bad decisions on trying to get quarterbacks all the time. We don't hear this as one of the worst trades ever. You know why? Because these guys don't have the level of baggage that is perceived to go with Deshaun Watson. That's all. That's exactly what it is. Let's go old school a little bit. Let's go old school. Ricky Williams, 1999. Y'all remember this? Desperate for a lead back, New Orleans Saints traded for a 1st, a 3rd, a 4th, a 5th, a 6th, and a 7th rounder in 1999, along with 1st and 3rd picks in 2000 to Washington for the 2nd overall pick, and that was the price to take Ricky Williams. Williams was a productive NFL back in his career as a running back, but played only 3 seasons with the Saints. He played 3 seasons with the Saints. His best years was in Miami. Again, we do not see nobody talking about this. Are you serious? Look at that draft capital. But the reason no one talks about it is because guess what? Hey, if somebody on ESPN says it, somebody on Fox says it, somebody on this says, then we all talk about how it's the worst trade ever. Let's continue down the yellow brick road, boys and girls. 1990. Vikings acquire Herschel Walker for 5 players and 8 draft picks. 5 players and 8 picks. Jimmy Johnson set up the Cowboys dynasty with unbelievable trade in 1990, moving star running back Herschel Walker and 4 draft picks to Minnesota for 5 players, 3 first-round picks, 3 second-round picks, a 3rd-round pick, and a 6th-round pick. Walker played only 2 seasons in Minnesota, and he failed to rush for 1,000 yards in either campaign. Stop talking to me about these dumb talking points, because when you do that, you lose credibility. It is nowhere near the worst trade in NFL history. Do you see what these people is going for? And not only the going rate, but the success level. They gave up all of that, and he never rushed for 1,000 yards. Never rushed for 1,000 yards. And let's finish this off right, because I couldn't remember his name in the previous clip. But why would I remember his name? He never plays, and he still don't play. Trey Lance. 49ers pulled the trigger on a monster trade with the Dolphins to move up to number 3 in the 2021 draft, where they selected North Dakota State quarterback Trey Lance. In the deal, they sent their 2021, 2022, 2023 first-round picks, along with a 2022 compensatory 3rd-round selection, which turned out to be number 102 overall. And the ripple effects from the deal will continue for years, depending on how the 49ers fare and what happens with those picks that they traded. Well, no one brings this up because guess what? The 49ers went to the Super Bowl. The 49ers found Brock Purdy. The 49ers still got Christian McCaffrey. Tell me somebody that the 49ers didn't get because they traded all these picks for Trey Lance. Not only did they not get, they got Deebo Samuels, they got Ayuk, they still got Bosa, they still got, come on. They went out and got Christian McCaffrey. Trent Williams is on that squad. Let's keep it real. Are they really hurt? No. This trade is by far worse than what's going on with Deshaun Watson, because you know why? At least Deshaun Watson went 5-1 last year. Deshaun Watson has only played 11 games. Trey Lance was so bad that they couldn't even get him on the field when Jimmy Garoppolo and Journeyman were there. So at the end of the day, I just want to keep going back to this and debunk this a little bit, because we continue to do this every single time we talk about Deshaun Watson, and it's lazy. It's lazy talking points. By the way, there's hundreds of more trades that I passed over just to talk about these few. This is just a few. Just a few. Oh, and if you believe so, in the comment section below, hit me up. Let me know why you believe that it's the worst trade. Because I just don't see it. I just don't see it. Maybe I'm looking into the wrong spot. With that being said, let's continue on with this theme of Deshaun Watson and trade. We know that the Houston Texans are a team that made the playoffs and beat the Cleveland Browns last year, right, in the playoffs. So they got a good foundation. They got C.J. Stroud. Let's see what the paid in full deal looks like. All of the picks have been taken. The Houston Texans have used all of the compensation but in the Deshaun Watson deal, and we'll examine what exactly did they take. What did they get in that haul for Deshaun Watson? And we'll examine whether or not they won the trade or they didn't. It's a little closer than you may think. It's G. Bush here, right here on the Ultimate Browns. The NBA playoffs are in full effect, and my dream one day is to be able to sit courtside and watch an NBA playoff game. Well, with the Game Time app, that might be possible. Game Time is an authorized ticket marketplace of the NBA, which makes getting playoff tickets even faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to tip-off, with killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and the lowest ticket prices guaranteed. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets. The thing I love most about the Game Time app is the last-minute tickets and the flash deals and the zone deals. It's easy to find and buy MLB tickets as well, or for any other type of event like WWE or any other events as well. You can have a view from all of your seats in the venue, and you have a low price guarantee, even cancellation protection. Take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code word locked on for $20 off of your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem your code word of locked, LO, guaranteed. Welcome back to the Ultimate Brown Show. G. Bush in here, rocking and rolling with y'all. Make sure y'all continue to support our other shows over here on UCSS Network. And make sure you check us out every single day, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. on the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. Make sure you subscribe and hit that like button for all of our notifications. We talked about Deshaun Watson, and we're debunking the whole worst trade thing, right? Now what we're going to do, let's take a bit of a deeper dive into it and find out what the Texans did with the picks that the Browns gave them in the Deshaun Watson trade, right? So to examine that, we had to wait it out and see exactly this year who they took with the picks that they gave them. And I'm going to be honest with you, this thing is a lot closer than people think. You would think that it would be a slam dunk. That this was going to be a situation where they really fleeced the Browns. But when you look at it and you take away the fact that they got C.J. Stroud, and a lot of people believe that the C.J. Stroud move was the Browns pick. They did not draft C.J. Stroud with the Browns pick. They drafted C.J. Stroud with their pick. So that's the thing that people want to talk about, and you think that they automatically won this trade, when in reality, if you go back in, and we're going to find out and look at now, that it was much closer than people definitely want to think about. Let's take a look at that. As for the Texans, they exhausted the last of their resources from the trade during the 2024 NFL Draft this weekend when they used that aforementioned fourth-round pick in number 123 to select Ohio State tight end Cade Stover. As the rest of the picks, here's what they turned into for Houston. So let's go back to the 2022 pick. They got a first-round pick, which was number 13 overall. They ended up trading that pick to the Eagles as part of a deal to move back 2 spots. The Eagle used that pick on defensive tackle Jordan Davis, who doesn't play very much, while Houston select guard Kenyon Green. Okay, you got guard out of the deal. All right. And the 2022 fourth-round pick, which turned out to be number 107, they used to get running back Dameon Pierce. I like Dameon Pierce. He's a guy who I think is their lead back. So you got Dameon Pierce out of the deal. 2023 first-round pick, which is number 12 overall. They traded to the Cardinals as part of a deal to move up to the number 3 overall. Houston used Arizona's pick to select defense end Will Anderson. The Browns' original pick wound up being traded again to Detroit, which turned into Jahmyr Gibbs. So Will Anderson is a guy, they used the pick to get Will Anderson. He's a guy, defensive end. He's one of their better defensive players. So, yeah, okay, cool. Got Will Anderson. 2023 third-round pick, number 73 overall. The Texans packaged this pick with a trade with the Rams to select receiver Tank Dell with the 69th overall pick. The Rams then traded the Browns pick to the Giants, who select Jalen Hyatt. So they ended up with Tank Dell with that pick. Tank Dell is a great ball player. I liked him. He did get injured at the end of the year, and he's been in some off the field issues. I think he ended up getting shot in the altercation in the club. So Tank Dell has some definitely have some upside. I think he's a great player. However, there's some downsides to him in injury. He did receive the injury, and he did have some off the field stuff. All right. 2024 first round pick, number 23 overall. Houston traded this pick to the Vikings, opting to move back to the second round. Minnesota wound up then trading that pick to the Jaguars, who select wide receiver Brian Thomas Jr. As for the Texans, they chose cornerback Kamari Lassiter, pick number 42 in the second round, and linebacker Jamal Hill with a sixth rounder they received in Minnesota as well. Okay, I guess. Fourth round pick in 2024 was number 123. Houston actually traded this pick to the Eagles, but it wound up coming back to them via the trade, and they used it to get Cade Stover. So the impact of the Watson trade on the Texans roster is vast. 2 years ago, they were a much different place than they are now, fresh off a season where they saw a blowout of the Browns in the wild card round of the playoffs. Players like Anderson, Dell, and even Pierce have been at the forefront of the franchise's quickest turnaround, as they also landed quarterback C.J. Stroud during that time frame. Now, listen, say what you want. Most of what their turnaround is by your boy C.J. Stroud, and he didn't get selected with the Browns pick. My takeaway from this is you got guys like Will Anderson, who's an up-and-coming defensive lineman. I like him a lot. I think he had 8 sacks or so his rookie year. Tank Dell is a guy, we talked about it, got some speed out of Houston, can move. He did get injured, and he does have some off-the-field issues, and Pierce is a nice running back. But if you look at it, I mean, this is why I always go back and when people start to be like, oh, this is the worst trade, this and that, and people want to move to hyperbole. When you go back and really look at it, I mean, yes, they got some pieces and parts, but by no means shape of the imagination that they came out and had all these Pro Bowlers, right? We'll see what they can do down the line. But from what I'm seeing, for the Cleveland Browns to get what they wanted to get, which is a franchise quarterback and a quarterback that now can be on the field right now, and if he plays well this year, that trade can get erased in a heartbeat. If Deshaun Watson comes back and he's Deshaun Watson this year and plays all his games, the Browns are a playoff team, the Browns are a division caliber winner, I'll take that trade every day and twice on Sunday. Because all you did is give up Tank Dell, Will Anderson, and running back Pierce, right? And again, who did the Browns not be able to get because they did that draft, because they had made that pick? Nobody. They still was able to get Jerry Jeudy, still was able to go get an Amari Cooper, still was able to go get, they were still able to move and do how they want to do. So when people say this is the worst trade in history, I'm just throwing a bow on it and being like, okay, well, let's look at other trades that were garbage. We looked at that first segment. All right, well, let's look at what the Texans actually got for Deshaun Watson. We just did that. And so you have to come away saying, and this ain't nowhere near the worst trade in history. As a matter of fact, it's pretty much the going rate if you want to try to get a quarterback. And look at all these other teams and how they went maneuvered and were able to do and still, ended up way worse than what the Browns ended up as currently constituted. You let me know. Listen, who won the trade in the comment section below? Is it as big of a blowout as we like to think it is, or is that trade a little bit closer? Especially if you can get the Browns to play well and Deshaun Watson is Deshaun Watson this year. Coming up, player spotlight. Zadarius Smith is running around like he got a new lease on life. Let's talk about it. We'll see what Zadarius Smith has going on. He cut his hair, but does that mean it's going to be a new Zadarius Smith with better production? What do the Browns need to get from Zadarius Smith, and is he able to give it to you? We'll take and examine that coming up next on the Ultimate Browns. Zach Meisel, Adam the Bull, every single Monday right here on the Ultimate Guardians. Guardians are scorching red hot, have ran off 9 in a row, first in the American League Central. They keep you, in contact with all the things and the nuances and the minutia of Major League Baseball, one of the best baseball podcasts. Make sure you check that out. Cavs, man, they got a lot of stuff to do. Garland, Allen, what are they going to get traded? Is LeBron possibly coming back? Hey, what is Donovan Mitchell doing, right? We got to find a new head coach every single Tuesday, or when breaking news happens, leave it to Mikey McNuggets and Jason Lloyd. They get you going with the Ultimate Cavs, and Earl the Pearl definitely gives you a little spin on things with a mixture of sports and culture. Make sure you watch the Ultimate 216 every Thursday. And of course, you need to stop playing around. It's so good, they got to give it to you twice. Monday and Friday, the Ultimate Browns with yours truly, G. Bush. Ultimate Browns, fastest 30 minutes in all of sports. We get right to the player spotlight. Zadarius Smith has a lot of energy. We catch up with him out there at training camp, and this is courtesy of the Cleveland Browns. This is
fresh cut.
You like it?
Yeah.
Big Z back in this thing, baby. Hey!
You got Big Z back. First day of OTAs. Called me the new guy with the haircut. Because I know the ladies love. Hey!
Hey, brothers on three. 1, 2, 3. Brothers.
Yeah. First day of OTAs in the books.
Zadarius Smith looking like he's out there with a little pep in his step, little vigor. He's out there moving around, man. Shout out to the Cleveland Browns and Zadarius Smith. We caught up on him at OTAs. And Zadarius looks like he looked like he a little sleeker. It's nothing like a fresh haircut. Leave it to the barber. It's not like a fresh haircut that give you a new lease on life, man. And so, when I look at Zadarius Smith, I was one of the guys who, when they got him, I was like, oh, this is it. This is going to be one of the best guys opposite of Myles Garrett. And during the season, at times he showed that he could, at times he showed he would give pressure, at times that he had flashes of brilliance, right? But we didn't see that same Zadarius Smith that we saw with the 10 sacks in Minnesota. We haven't seen the Zadarius Smith that it was in Green Bay when he had 12 or 13 sacks a couple years with Green Bay. I think, he's a little bit older, 31 years old. He didn't have the production. He had 5.5 sacks for the Browns last year, but the production wasn't what we were looking for. We've been looking for production opposite of Myles Garrett for years, right? We've been talking about, hey, we can get another pass rusher way back in with Olivier Vernon or Emmanuel Ogbo, or going back to Jadeveon Clowney. We've always wanted to get that guy to get to 10, 12 sacks opposite Myles Garrett, and it just hasn't worked. However, with that being said, I was still glad that the Browns brought him back because I think that, he's familiar with the system. I think it's a second year for him, and he's better than what your alternative is. He's a veteran guy. He likes being here. And I think one of the things that you saw right there is that energy level. He's excited. He wants to be here. He has a good camaraderie. I think Obo Onkarako, I think him and Shelby Harris and Tomlinson and Myles Garrett and Alex Wright and all those guys, and Maurice Hurst, all those guys really, really like each other. I think the defensive line is one of the close-knit groups that we really see, and you can see him bouncing around out there on the film, and then how he's just having fun with the camaraderie. He's just really enjoying himself. It's you need guys like that. I think that one thing that we look at is I would like the production to be around 8.5 sacks. If you can get a guy with 8.5 sacks or 9 sacks from Zadarius Smith, now you look at it and you say, wow, now we got something. We cooking with something. If you could get 6 sacks from Obo Onkarako, if you can get 3 or 4 sacks from JOK, you know what Myles Garrett gonna give you. If you can get Alex Wright to give you 5, 6 sacks, Now you start developing them to a point where now the Cleveland Browns got waves of defensive linemen coming at you that can get after the pass rusher. I think Mike Hall Jr. is going to be another dude that's going to really be able to get after the pass rusher as well. So, I'm loving what the mix is. I like the energy that he's bringing back to the table. I also like the fact that he knows the system and this is the second year in Jim Schwartz's defense. So, to me, I think he was a little underwhelming. By the way, I think he does a good job on the run though as well. And he does have versatility where his best place to me is rushing him over the 3 technique. I think he has, he has the girth, the ability to play inside, even though he's a little undersized. But lining him up, standing him up over a guard is where his best pass rushing comes from, because he's able to use that bull rush, he's able to use that power, transition that to speed to get after the quarterback. So, 5.5 sacks is something I think Zadarius would say he's a little disappointed with. I would like to see him get back in double-digit sacks and get that. I think it has a lot to do with the durability. And if he's durable, I think that he will have an opportunity to put up some sack numbers. And in general, I think it's a good signing to bring him back. You never want to, fill shoes like that with rookies. And I think the Browns did a really good job of not only bolstering what they did in the draft, but they came back with the veterans. You still got Tomlinson. You still got Hurst. You got Shelby Harris. You went out and got Mike Hall Jr. You still got Siaki Ika. You still got Alex Wright, Obo Akaranko. You got Myles Garrett back over here and Zadarius Smith. So now you got a lot of different pieces that you can play with. And you're not counting on young guys to come out and give you impact minutes game after game. You got guys that are willing, that are veterans that know what need to be done, that can get it done. So I think Zadarius Smith will have a bounce back year. He's one of the reasons why I think the Browns will be even much better. And it's hard to say much better in a defense that was already number 1, 2, or 3 in the league for pretty much the rest of the whole season last year. I think they'll be better. I think they'll be more discipline when it comes to certain things, and I think they'll be running some more zone coverage. I think you'll see them mix it up and have some more wrinkles year 2 with Jim Schwartz. So looking forward to what Zadarius Smith is going to be able to bring to the table. With that being said, I told you 30 minutes go so quick when you're talking about the Browns and you're having a good time breaking it down. With that being said, it's your boy G Bush. Make sure you check us out. This dropped on Tuesday. We still come back to you on Friday. We get that done and have another show ready for you on Friday. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. Make sure you're commenting. Make sure you're liking these joints so all of our content gets more and more and more out to other people and gives an opportunity to spread our net. As always, you never know where G Bush is going to show up. I might be on radio, TV. I can be on the internet. But the surest way to figure out if it's G Bush or one of them imposters is always listen for those Clippers. Have a great day and go Browns.